First off, I find that many of the Pacific carriers don't actually know where their traffic is going. They don't have a great idea of how much of their traffic is going to Facebook or Google or YouTube. They know that these are major demands on their networks, but they don't have real hard data. They just sort of know from stories, that Facebook performance suffers at this time, or Google, YouTube performance suffers in the evening, or so on. And in order to improve their connectivity, they really need to start with the knowledge of where their traffic is going. Their technicians, for the most part, when they upskill to the point they can do this, go off to more lucrative markets. There's a huge drain on the Pacific Islands from Auckland and Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne. You'll find the best and brightest Pacific network engineers end up overseas and not staying in the Pacific. So there's a constant cycle of new technicians in running the telcos in the Pacific, and they don't have the systems or the knowledge to understand their traffic. Managers in Pacific Island telecommunications companies tend to buy bandwidth based on what their large vendors tell them. We have a number of telcos around the Pacific who sell on Southern Cross Cable, and they like providing deals to the smaller operators, and the deals are sometimes well suited to the operators and sometimes they're not. And at a managerial level, the telcos in the Pacific really don't understand what's a good deal and what's not, and when they're buying more capacity, whether or not that's actually going to solve their problems. There are clear paths on the technical side for training. There are a number of training courses that have been in play, run by APNIC, run by NSRC, run by a number of organizations that will teach engineers how to understand their traffic flows, how to see where their traffic is going and who they should be connecting and interconnecting with. On the managerial level, it's not so clear. There is an organization of carriers, the Pacific Island Telecommunications Association, but training tends to be very vendor dominated. So we'd have to think, how can we impart knowledge to the people making the purchasing decisions, and make it valuable to them, make it valuable to their communities. Regulators have a really interesting problem because a number of Pacific Island nations own some or all of their major telcos and gain a good revenue stream from voice minutes, from use of their telecommunications networks. They see new services like Skype coming in and taking their revenue. The same way with broadcasting. Many governments still own the broadcasters for their countries and get some revenue out of those broadcasters. And services like Netflix and YouTube are over the top. They're not gaining any value out of those services. Of course, the users in the countries love the new services, but the governments maybe not so much. Regulators have had a few interesting ideas about how to deal with these problems, but it seems like every country is trying to do its own thing without first a good understanding from a technical standpoint what's happening, what's possible. And second, without understanding what some other larger countries have done in response. So some training to help regulators understand the technical issues around over-the-top services might be incredibly useful.